Complaining about being middle-aged, eh?
Welcome all younger viewers to future of middle-agement.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is season 2. I am, as always, John, Yahya, or Sean, depends on who the hell you're asking.
I'm Chris.
And this is Your Voice, Your Nation. This is season 2 of the Blue Collar Workers. Thank you all for coming back, all 603 of you as of today. We deeply appreciate it.
And all you noticed, he actually looks proper trim.
My hair got in my eyes, and I had to get rid of it. It was one of them moments when I had to just slightly clean it up a bit. We would just beforehand, I'm probably gonna leave that little snippet that we had before it, where the two of us complaining about being middle-aged. We've got problems, middle-age problems that you get when you reach your 40s. You might be on the early side of the 40s, but we're in them. Today I have Understanding Islam, a faith of peace, not terrorism, to push back on the rhetoric that is genuinely exposed by much of the British press, which is overly a representation of negativity towards my religion. I wanted to give a non-theological approach towards these conversations. Obviously, theology tends to irk the agnostic next to me. And also why halal meat should not be banned in the United Kingdom. And I think this is a point that Chris has got some counterpoints towards this.
I've got some things I'll challenge you on it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's crack on, shall we? Relatively speaking, in a world filled with fast-moving headlines and social media soundbites, it is easy for the misconception to spread unchecked. One of the most harmful and persistent myths of our time is the idea that Islam is a religion rooted in terrorism. The belief is not only inaccurate, but deeply unjust to over 1.9 billion peaceful Muslims worldwide who strive to live its true values and peace, mercy and compassion. One of the key factors with the faith of Islam is our general greeting, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, which genuinely roughly translates as in peace upon you and upon your family. That's a rough translation of how it comes to. So when you're talking about being peaceful towards you and your family, you are, how the hell can even that opening statement maintain a position that you're a religion of terrorism? And what irritates me is the uneducated hacks that are allowed on modern public TV. We're not even talking social media, where anyone can pick up a phone and do that. I mean, these two middle-aged idiots are picking up a phone and trying to do something like that by themselves. But what I'm trying to get at is the standing media, people who are paid every day to change and give narrative or apparent news, we all know it isn't news, have uneducated hacks on their television all the time spouting about how elements of Islam are terrorism. No, it's not. There's nothing about our religion that is terrorist-based. And I personally find it quite offensive when people refer towards... I mean, no one would ever consider... this was a point I made a few months ago. Do you remember the Axel Rodderman, the devout Christian who hacked up the Taylor Swift girls? Yeah. That horrific matter that happened here in the UK. He's hardline Christian. But that was never mentioned in the media. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that Christians are not that way inclined generally. They're not. Let's not hold any illusions here. What I'm trying to get at is the way that the media paints that if that young man was a Muslim, you all know it would have been Islamic terrorism. That would have been the narrative.
You know the source of it all, don't you?
Yeah, of course. It's divide and conquer control from Parliament.
No, but it's something that's been spread since 9/11. So
yeah. To be fair, 9/11 was horrific. Let's dig up the bones of that. Horrific, monstrous. People died from the collapsing tower. People died from the planes. Mass murderers in charge of them. The ideology of terrorism gives a tiny root to Islam, and they warp. One of the basic tenets that I wanted to mention was take one life, you've taken all of humanity. Save one life, you have saved all of humanity. That's in the Holy Quran. You cannot take life in Islam without legal permission. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it takes a court case. That's what the real meaning of the original Sharia courts are. It's to go forward, find out who's guilty, like a British court would, and if you're innocent, you're released. If you're guilty, then you're punished with death. You can't execute people the way terrorists does. It's entirely forbidden in Islam, in every possible aspect.
I always think it is a normal case of the fact you've got the extreme side compared to the normal side.
No, Chris, the point of that is the Quran is very specific. The only way, hypothetically, that I can harm another, someone who is effectively kuffar, is in warfare. If the Muslim world is being waged war on, it is then lawful to do so. Controversial position. What the Palestinian resistance are doing is lawful, Islamically speaking. It is. They're defending their land, their homes, their people from the attacks of Israel. That is lawful. That's Islamically lawful.
Most people, regardless of religion, will do that anyway. So
yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah, they're defending their homes, their place that are being bombed, carpet bombed all the time. So I mean, that's lawful in terms of the legality of a struggle, but to attack innocent civilians, to ram planes into buildings, to attack shopping malls, there's nothing Islamically proven towards that. And it is the media attempt to constantly drag that on.
They're literally just focusing on one very tiny snippet of someone that's took it completely out of context.
You see, jihad, which is quite often used, is to struggle and to defend. It has a dualitable meaning. So I jihad against my weight. I struggle against my weight. That is a very legitimate way of putting it. I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to do something about it. So that is considered an Islamically acceptable struggle. Yes, jihad also means to protect the land, to fight in the defense of against those that oppress the land. Like I said, it has a dualitable meaning. Most people, most imams don't like it, even talking about jihad. It's not something that's even discussed in masjids these days, when it should be. Because the silence allows for the gap. That's one of the things I have a problem with modern masjids, is their unwillingness to talk about jihad. Because if they did so in the theological sense, they would be able to break the narrative of those who recruit young boys to do these nasty things. Because jihad is in the Quran. It means to struggle. It means to defend the innocent. And that's how it's warped, because places like Britain, France, Germany, including America, do not talk about it theologically in their own masjids. Crusades are talked about all the time in churches. There are churches talk about crusade all the time. But apparently we're not allowed to talk about jihad because it's such a sensitive subject. And I think that needs to stop. One of the other principal positions involving the sanctity of life in the Quran could not be clearer about the value of human life. In Surah Al-Ma'arij 5:32, it states, whoever kills a person unjustly, as in outside of a court, as I was mentioning.
It's murder.
Yeah, murder. It is as if he has killed all of mankind. The Prophet and God said, you kill someone unjustly, you have murdered all of mankind. You have stolen a part of human soul. And whoever saves a life, it is as if he has saved all of mankind. So where hadiths are the sayings of the Prophet and can be questioned, this is the Holy Quran that we believe is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, passed to Gabriel, passed then to our Prophet. So that profoundly declares that you cannot kill anybody unjustly without a shira court, without declaring them criminals, murderers, rapists, the way that court systems work. So this is the fundamental point that many Westerners refuse to even engage in a conversational position. This profound declaration underscores that the takes of an innocent life is one of the greatest sins in Islam, a message consistently echoed by Muslim scholars and communities throughout history and throughout the modern terror phase. Muslim scholars are always talking about this. Another example from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, the life of Prophet Muhammad serving a life example of mercy and forgiveness. Despite enduring years of persecution, torture, exile at the hands of his opponents in his home city of Marrakesh, he chose forgiveness over revenge. So after him and his Muslim religion took back their birth city, of which many of them come from, they didn't seek revenge on anybody who exiled them. They didn't steal their property. They didn't take any of their homes. They didn't mistreat them. They didn't even force them to convert to Islam.
They just wanted their home back and just made it so.
Yeah. So this tells you without a shadow of doubt that he is a prophet of God. Because forgiveness is a massive thing. If you look at Judaism, you look at Christianity, you can see forgiveness is a massive theme of the Abrahamic faiths, the religions that operate out of the Holy Land, when you look at them as that point of example. So, such actions are a far cry from the hatred and violence perpetrated by modern extremists who falsely claim to act in the Prophet's name. They really do. Because any reading of the life of the Prophet, any reading of how the Prophet behaved in the Holy Quran gives a very clear indication of a softly spoken, gentle man who only raised the sword at the last resort. Like, he was completely unviolent unless he had to be. Do you know what I'm saying? If someone was going to murder a friend, like someone was going to kill you, I have to stop them. I'm Islamically required to. Do you know what I'm saying?
But, say good luck at them trying to.
Yeah, but relatively, I have to because you're my friend. I'm Islamically obliged to because your life is in danger. But those are the reasons that Muslims should raise arms, and that is the only reason. So the idea that terrorism is a methodology that is born of Islam is absolutely fabricated. Terrorism itself is a distortion of our faith. It's critical to recognise that, like other ideologies and religions, Islam has unfortunately been misused by a small, violent minority who perpetually belong to less than 0.1% of the Muslim population, who believe that this is a methodology that is acceptable. There are no mainstream scholars. There's no one in the main track that would agree with the necessity of this. These individuals and groups represent themselves, not the faith of Islam. Their acts of terror are denounced by Muslim leaders and scholars globally, with countless public condemnations and initiatives advocating for peace and interfaith harmony. The problem being is the Western media doesn't point that out. So let's hypothetically say
it doesn't feed in the message.
No, of course, absolutely not. You can have a terror attack here in the UK. You can name any of them, and look upon how the media do not speak to the community or watch how the community behaves. There's never been an imam been allowed to say we condemn this. When it happens, it's extremely rare. But yet every masjid, every holy place, every place of prayer, the speaker condemns the act of terrorism in the country.
You do know why, don't you?
Yeah, because they don't want the British people to realise that it's not their religion. That there's a media spin to it.
No, it's just spinning a fact of fear on because it's a foreign concept to the UK, because it's only just been...
I don't understand how it's a foreign concept. The difference between Christianity and Islam are skin deep.
Yeah, but it's something that's been introduced from, obviously, outside of the UK.
So's Christianity,
yeah,
for 700 years, 800 years ago.
But that was more, that had a violent beginning to start off with. So
yeah, no, true.
But obviously, when people actually look into the facts and make up their own mind, because I'm very much the case, if you want to do a faith, you do it on your own accord.
And again,
This is one thing which really pees me off about people pushing about it.
And again, there is no compulsion in religion.
Yeah.
Islam teaches that there is no false. Like, our job is to purvey the message, and that's it. That's that. There is no compulsion in religion, and that's also in the Holy Quran. So we're not to, like the Christians give the good word. Yeah. Like they are forced to give the good word. That they consider themselves, they have to save you, Chris, because you're damned, because you're a sinner. You have to be saved. That's a Christian ideology. Islam is, here's the information. If you don't want to read it, cool. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is how dawah is done. Dawah is done in a perceptionation that we present the evidence, we present the full information. If you want to read it, fantastic. If you don't, cool. Have a lovely day, sir. Do you understand what I'm saying? Proselytization in Islam is entirely different from proselytization in Christianity. Christianity is about, or was, it's not in England anymore because they've slowly outlawed banging on doors and, like they did in the old days.
Now they just stand on the street corner.
So do Muslims. But we do it in a different perspective. We sit there, we have our signs up, we don't bother people.
But then I think if you're stood there on a street corner reading from whatever text or whatever, I'm like, fine. I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't interest me.
Of course. And I get how some people are like that, But again, the Holy Quran is about, there is no compulsion. We present the information that we have.
And it doesn't help when the media turns around, takes snippets of things, or people post
things
saying, just it rolled up on one of my feeds the other day. and the brother of the Muslim faith turns around and goes, "We're coming for you, UK. We shall take over. We shall eventually take over the world." And I'm just like, that is the wrong message to portray on any religion or anything else, because the only thing you're going to do is everyone's going to get their back up and go,
That's an idiot. That's an idiot.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. That is prolifically an idiot. But the problem is everyone has idiots. We have Christian idiots. We have agnostic idiots. We have political idiots. They exist in every community. Let's be fair about
There's
this.
always an idiot.
Yeah.
Can't get away from it.
Islam is built on justice. This is another point I wanted to make involving Islam, not a religion of terrorism. Justice is one of Islam's highest moral imperatives. In Surah Al-Nisa 4:135, Muslims are commanded, "O you who believe, be persistent, standing firm in justice. Witness for Allah, even if it's against yourself or your parents or relatives." So justice is so important in the Holy Quran that you are to bear witness against your parents and your partner if they've broken the law. So so the emphasis on fairness and integrity extends to all dealings, whether personal, social or political, and leave no room for unjust acts or violence. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're commanded by the Quran, in the Holy Quran, in Surah Al-Nisa, to bear witness if the crimes are against yourself, against your parents and relatives. Now, we know that's very difficult to do because you love your parents, you love your relatives, you're not going to want to victim yourself. But the religion tells you that justice is more important than your personal safety and well-being. That justice is more important. So how does that religion then relate to terrorism? Of course it doesn't. It's an oxymoron. The freedom of belief, central point of stereotype, as I just mentioned to you earlier, Islam upholds religious freedom. The Quran expressly declares in Surah Al-Baqarah 225:6, there is no compulsion in religion. That's the second chapter of the Quran. So the first chapter is the opening prayer, as in basically declaring we love God. Basically, that's what it is. It's like almost one page, and then we have the second chapter that gives you the introduction. In the second chapter, literally almost at the beginning of it, there is no compulsion in religion.
Shouldn't be compulsion in any religion, but there you go.
Yeah, but that's the point. God doesn't want your worship if it isn't real. That's a very fair point of view. So these temporal positions in Islam are unquestionably just, noble, upstanding, humane, lawful. I mean, everyone has thought the right to choose the faith without pressure or coercion. The principles directly contradict the forced conversions or religious persecutions often associated with terrorism. See, terrorism is its own cult, relatively speaking. And terrorism is the way that people force convert people. No one should be force converted. It's entirely haram. You only have to look at the first 700 years of Islam and realize that the Muslim world ruled over a predominantly Christian empire. So yes, empires happened in the first 700 years of Islam. Empires were everywhere. We can all agree that was the norm. Building empires was what you did. But the Muslim population did not force the Christians, the Jews. Jews lived amongst Muslims for nearly 1,000 years. Safely lived amongst Muslims for 1,000 years. I think that speaks volumes for itself about forced conversion. The voice of the Muslim majority. It's worth remembering that the overwhelming majority of Muslims, from scholars to everyday individuals, myself amongst them, constantly denounce terrorism. Numerous fatwas, that's Islamic rulings, and statements from leading Islamic organisers have reaffirmed that such an act is forbidden in Islam, in fiqh, in Islamic law. So there is no aspect of Islam that allows terrorism. None. But again, the media wants to perpetrate this argument because they want to feed a narrative of divide and conquer. That is how Western media tends to operate, which deeply disturbs me, involving much of it. Warfare in Islam, strictly ethical limits. Islam only permits warfare in cases of self-defense or to fight an oppression. Even then, it enforces strict ethical guidelines. No harm to civilians, that's what terrorism does. No destruction of property, what terrorism does. And no mistreatment of the vulnerable. So you can't help the elderly, children, women, religious clergy. Islam forbids the harm of clerics of Christianity. Not just Christians, Jews, any kind of clergy. So the warfare is very, very strict. Muslim countries today don't obey the rules of warfare. As in Saudi Arabia, UAE, they don't pay attention to the warfare rules of the Quran. They haven't done for decades. I doubt they ever did. There's a rich history of tolerance and contributions. Muslim civilization has a proud history of peacefully coexisting and culturally flourishing, from Muslim Spain, Al-Andalusia, to the Ottoman Empire, to the Islamic societies, often serving as beacons of learning, arts, and interfaith dialogue, hosting diverse religious communities side by side in relative peace. The Ottoman Empire ruled Greece for centuries. Greece is now today still a Christian country. You see, people don't even want to talk about these very basic kind of understandable positions. And it irritates me greatly when they just continually misalign what it means to be Muslim. I mean, personally, I get more and more irritable when people sit there and say, oh, it's a religion of terror. No, it's not. There's no evidence. There's absolutely... You read the text. That's the beautiful thing. You can read the Islamic text. It's translated these days. We prefer people to read it in Arabic, a'udhu billah, but there is English translations, word for word. And it is very clear that harming people en masse, just giving the examples I give for warfare. Warfare is extremely strict. This is why Muslims don't go to war. They do policing actions. The modern language. Look what Saudi Arabia did to Yemen recently, like in the last couple of years. You know, carpet bombing, that's fucking entirely illegal in Islamic. And Saudi Arabia is apparently the biggest Muslim country. There's nothing Muslim about their rulers. There never has been. The crown
population's probably Muslim.
Yeah, the population's Muslim, definitely.
But then whether the leaders
are absolutely, because you can't use carpet bombing on a fellow Muslim. You can't use carpet bombing on Christians, on Jews, on any innocent life, because it defies Islamic rules of the Holy Quran itself. One of God's names, or a selection of God's names, as we Muslims, we say he has 99 names that we know of. God's names, the merciful and the compassionate. The spiritual core of Islam is reflected in the two names most often associated with God. Al-Rahim, the most merciful, and Al-Rahman, the most compassionate. Every chapter of the Quran, except one, begins by invoking these attributes, reminding Muslims to embody mercy, compassion in their lives. So every chapter talks about Al-Rahim and Al-Rahman, the merciful, the most merciful of God, and the most compassionate of God. And if every chapter barring one, I think that's Al-Fatiha that doesn't, because obviously it's the introduction. The whole point about Al-Fatiha is it's designed to introduce you. Oh, I might be wrong about that. In closing, Islam is a faith of peace, mercy, justice. Whilst it has, like many others, traditionally been misrepresented by extremists, these individuals do not speak for the faith or of its followers. The true teachings of Islam reject terrorism and uphold the sanctity of life, fairness, and kindness to all. As global citizens, it is our responsibility to seek truth beyond stereotypes and to build bridges of understanding between communities. Peace and blessings upon everybody. This was an example that was written to me by another Muslim friend who wanted to remain anonymous. So he gave me 10 bullet points on how to articulately disagree with the argument of terrorism. Now, he's a trainee scholar, if you're unaware. He also did my halal things, which you're prepared for. But in essence, from what you've just heard, what is your take on how Islam is approached in the Western media?
They just, as I've said, they literally just pluck one particular point which will feed the narrative to keep everyone against each other, or to stay alert for whatever reason they think, because obviously it's an outside concept to the Western world, when you can't admit it's mainly been an Eastern orientated faith, not necessarily as far as China and whatnot, but more the
China's got Muslim.
Yeah,
China's got Muslims.
Yeah, mainly
I
more,
think
mainly more Middle Eastern.
Yeah, Middle East,
Middle East,
Asia, India.
Yeah, it's come from that region, which
there's huge population in Africa too.
Which people are like, okay, that's theirs. When it starts coming over, that's when people start to get a bit antsy, as I call it.
Well, what irritates me is that I don't understand their objections, considering that they don't go to church. Do you know what I'm saying? The Christian faith here in the UK is almost dead. In the from 2010 to the 2020 census, the Christian religion dropped from 70% of the population to 42%. So I genuinely don't know why they have these great objections. We're not taking over a dead, like harming the Christian faith. The Christian faith is harming itself. We're a tiny portion of the population.
I think it's more. I reckon religion in all, just in general, has taken a hit anyway due to emergence and modernisation and lack of understanding of people that want to follow.
This is true. I mean, I would say that. I mean, this is probably the most concrete conversation we've had on religion, isn't it? I mean, normally me and you don't even talk about it. It's not something me and Chris tend to bring up because it's not how our friendship's built. It involves memes and swearing at each other.
Standard bloke relationship.
Yeah, pretty much. Standard bloke relationship. So, I mean, in essence, I find it boggles me that in a society that claims that we're free to make any decision we want that doesn't harm people, I've already proven without a doubt that Islam isn't bent on harming people, that why can't we live peacefully in our part of our communities whilst everyone else is doing likewise? And again, it's because, as I was thinking, there is a measure of fear that comes towards that. But I find that that's not enough. There is definitely an agenda.
It's start off with is obviously just as a core precaution, because in fact it's something new towards obviously this side of the pond.
The Mare Nostrum.
Yeah.
Mediterranean.
Yeah, Mediterranean. Obviously, it's something new that's come into the UK. Obviously, people don't necessarily understand it.
New, it's been here 200 years.
Yeah. Well, based on other religions and everything else, it's new.
If you're going by other religions, it's new.
you got based upon the broader spectrum, not just over a certain time frame. The entire lot. Christianity's been here a lot longer than what most Islamic faith has been, and other faiths
absolutely.
And everything else.
Paganism's still here.
Yeah,
the original paganism of the island.
That's deeply embedded within the country, regardless of what you say, even if the
people
following the faith,
massively.
Even though the people
and it isn't something. You see, the problem is, Chris, it isn't like we Muslims want the Christians to disappear. That's a fucking misconception. Because we came here because we thought you had similar. Well, my Muslim brother and sister, I was born here, but the Muslim came here because they thought they had similar moralities. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, going on what you said there, it follows same guidelines of peace and harmony. Every faith that I've looked into literally follows those same sort of guidelines, principles, which is fine. Everyone has their own adaptation and everything else. You'll find that with everything in life. It's just you have your own view. It's just people twisting that view and then taking it to the extreme side or the other side, whichever. It's the extreme side everyone has the problem with, and it's the extreme side which the media tends to
portray us as all of us, as the entire Muslim faith.
As I call it, it only takes one bad egg of the bunch to ruin the rest.
Oh, absolutely.
For example, regarding obviously white people, white people are considered the devil at the moment. I'm like, good, if you want me to live up to that, I can do. But you'll be
maybe you
crying.
English and Americans, maybe you English, we Irish can tell you all to go fuck yourselves. We're not on this boat. We didn't colonise anybody. We're minding our own business.
Yeah, but unfortunately, as I call it, it's a case of one egg spoils the rest. And one of those eggs is the white supremacist. That's just one side. And all it takes is, obviously, with the Muslims, they're getting obviously the terrorist side of things. The whites have the white supremacist side of things to deal with and everything else, even though the white supremacists tend to be dying off at the moment. I think that's probably because of the fact you're taking the slack of the terrorism. I could guarantee at some point that will drop off, then white supremacy will come back into play again.
It's like feeding fear seems to be a professional fucking thing of the media. Especially of almost all the remaining written rags around the country.
And what really pees me off is the racial card.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like, the whites are racist to everybody, so we get to be racist to the whites. Hang on, this card has been played against all races, or throughout
It's
time,
never justifiable to be racist.
It's
Even
always
against
been
white
there. It
people.
doesn't care if you're focusing mainly on us. We'll take the hit. 'Cause I'm not gonna lie, I don't give a shit what you think. To be honest, you could go stick your head up your ass, regardless what colour you are. You want to be an ignorant dickhead? You could go be an ignorant dickhead over there.
All forms of racism is disgusting, vile, and inhumane. Whether it's perpetrated onto white people, black people, pink people, purple people with polka dot spots, all forms of racism is evil. It's designed as a divide and conquer kind of mentality, and it's completely haram to Islam. The Muslim faith and Muslims in general tend to have a very pluralistic view. We have Arabs, we have Africans, we have Asians, we have Europeans. There's quite a few of us. There's more than a few million. You'd be surprised. White Europeans, I might add, before anybody starts talking about how the migrants are.
I'm sorry, but you look at the European population. What is their main colour? Us.
Well, the Mediterraneanists and Spanish might have a problem with that. The Spanish are still part of our people.
Yeah, literally, they're predominantly white. Yeah, okay. When you come to like Greece and Spain and everything else, but they've adapted to
their environment.
Environment.
Spain, Greece.
Yeah, they're the more hot environment, so their skins
more
naturally go into
olive light.
Tan a bit, but you don't see them turn around and turn into chocolate teapots now, do you? No.
Jesus Christ, guys.
I don't give a crap. You take offence to that. Take offence to it. It's called being offended. I get offended. You get offended. Brush it off. Carry on.
Oh,
I'm
my
sorry.
Lord of mercy. But yeah, in essence, the cultural normalities of our society need to change. They need to be more broader, more open-minded, especially when it comes towards things like a religion that is trying to do good by the British people. Halal meat should not be banned in the United Kingdom. In recent years, and recent months in fact, debates have surfaced in the UK about whether halal and kosher meat should be restricted or banned due to the animal welfare concerns. However, a fair and balanced view, should there be a strong reason why banning halal meat would be inappropriate, unfair, and even discriminatory. Here are my points. The UK is a proudly multicultural and multi-faith society. Freedom of religion practice is protected by law. That's point one. Including the Human Rights Act of 1998, which specifically is a UK law, not a EU law, before anyone starts kicking off about the EU interfering. The Human Rights Act of 1998 is a British law, which defends the right to manifest one's religion or belief. Halal slaughter is a deeply significant practice for Muslims, forming part of their religious obligations and traditions. Banning it would directly infringe upon the religious rights and cultural identity. Halal slaughter is already regulated. Contrary to some misconceptions, halal meat production in the UK is subject to strict animal welfare regulations. The Food Standard Agency, the FSA, monitors abattoirs to ensure hygiene, humane treatment and legal compliance. In fact, the majority of halal meat in the UK is pre-stunned, which aligns in closely with the convention slaughter practices of the rest of the United Kingdom and Europe.
Well, we already know UK's got a fantastic food standard compared to other countries. So when it comes to halal meat, what I can understand is it's just a more humane way of...
It's in a nutshell, Chris, what it is they're stunned, there's a prayer given, and then they're killed. That's literally what it is.
It's just a more humane way of slaughtering livestock for consumption. If it involves a simple prayer, what's that really going to affect everybody else?
Like I said, the actual physical standards, take the prayer out. The only thing that you've got difference between it is we raise our animals without certain food, certain behaviours. They're not cooped up like some of those. If anything, you could probably argue that halal farmed animals are free range. Do you know what I'm saying? That they're not cooped up.
They're bred within the natural confines of what they are.
Yeah. Inside their farms. Without,
I would call that organic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It is an organic kind of way of raising livestock.
Yeah. But I was literally thinking, well, you're just making it more well, nutritional value.
Yeah, and for religious purposes.
Yeah, nutritional value obviously is yet to be debated, but if it aligns with UK standards,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The FSA monitor all the abattoirs to ensure hygienic, humane treatment, as I said. The UK and EU laws historically made specific allowances for religious slaughter methods. Even after Brexit, the UK continued to recognise the importance of protecting religious slaughter rights under national law. Halal meat production is not an unregulated practice, but one carried out within a carefully controlled lawful parameters. So is kosher. Now, you see the news just recently that's been going on about banning halal, like they had 100,000 prescriptions. They're not talking about kosher meat, but they're the same thing. The difference is one is a Jewish prayer, one is a Muslim prayer. That's literally the difference between the two of us. Muslims and Christians can eat each other's food.
See,
but they're not talking about banning halal kosher markets.
If it's the fact of just a prayer, if they're objecting to the fact that there's a prayer being said as the animal is killed or after it's killed, then you need to blanket that across entire everything.
And they won't. They won't. No one's talking about koshers doing it.
You can't just single out one and then say the other.
Because that will be the one challenged in court.
Yeah.
Because let's be hypothetical that Parliament passes a law, it'll be challenged because it's an affront to not only our religious rights, it's an attack upon the fact that the Jewish, and I'm not here, A'udhu Billah, I'm not here to say I want kosher banned. Please don't take that as the assumption. I don't want that mixed up in any way, shape or form. But the British Jewish community are not even being discussed, and their slaughter methods are identical to ours. So the difference is prayer.
If you decide to pray after an animal is been
so if you're going to ban that, you're going to need
then that. Yeah, there's no harm in it. It's not as if you turn around and stick in a voodoo ritual where it's going to curse somebody on it. Yeah, even that's... even that, I'm literally like, voodoo? What the hell are you on about? Turn around and show me physical proof that is actually real, then I might consider it actually anything. But the only thing I see is somebody dressed differently, spouting some shite. But that's just about it.
I mean, the cultural inclusion and community harmony... halal food is part of the everyday life of Britons for 3.9 million British Muslims. Removing access to halal meat would alienate a significant community, damage social cohesion and inclusiveness. The UK benefits from a rich, diverse and respectful difference. Directly practicing strengthens national unity. Muslims are not eating any differently than the rest of the British people, except relatively speaking, we pray over our food. That's it. We say things like Bismillah when we're eating, which means praise. Thank God.
That's no difference to saying grace at the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know the terms of grace it's not applied in British society much anymore. I don't think it is in any real respect on the national level.
Yeah, the ones that, as I call, follow the Christian faith more adherently do tend to say grace and whatnot. Or some do it just on their own at the table, respecting the other people's things, but they do it themselves.
Yeah, of course. And there's nothing wrong with that.
To be quite honest, most people are, whatever, that's your choice. And they just carry on. Some actually do a form of respect and won't touch it until you're done. It just depends on the person. But I'm sorry, the only thing that I would say is, does it cost anything to us?
No,
not halal. Or is it
going to damage the British society? No.
No, I was going to say, the things they'll be more... worried about when it comes to halal, because it'll come up within discussion. Would it affect the farming industry? If it's already following the guidelines of the UK food industry, won't touch a thing. Will it affect cost? If it falls in line with everything, won't affect cost. From what I can hear, the only thing I'll turn around and say is
actually I think the halal slaughter is the halal packaged meat is slightly more expensive than the standard British.
Like I say, obviously it'll come down to what I call most people will be worried about. Will it affect farming? Will it affect cost? And does it change nutritional value in any shape or form? I think that's what most people will be worried about, really. Yeah. To be quite honest.
Some argue that non-stun slaughter causes unnecessary suffering, but this is a debate even among veterinarians and animal welfare experts. Islamic teachings emphasize that animals must be treated kindly, well-fed, handled gently, right up to the moment of slaughter. In many cases, halal slaughter involves less stress to the animal than large-scale industrial slaughter methods in the UK. You see, the 100,000 petition is the thing that got on my back because it comes from a misinformation of our society and our nature of our nation in general. There is a massive misconception when it comes towards how animals are treated in halal food markets.
I think the only thing I'd say, if it isn't going to affect us, why are we worrying about it?
Bigots, I think, is why it's got to Parliament. And even if Parliament was to ban halal meat, you're going to be challenged because kosher is literally no different. And that's going to trigger the Jewish community as well. So you're going to get up two religious backgrounds almost immediately. Now, I know to many of the ethno-nationalists, they couldn't care less. They will probably want us both gone, Muslims and Jews.
I very rarely see, as I call, a Jewish person they usually tend to have the extremely long
sideburns,
big
hat.
Yeah. I very rarely see any of them in Gloucestershire ever. I actually saw one for the first time in my place of work yesterday. I was like, damn, that's a rare size.
Yeah. And I mean, I think to be honest, remember that 3.9 million Britons eat halal meat or attempt to eat halal meat. We either subsidise on vegetables or we eat from the halal.
To be honest, I think most of us eat halal meat without even realising it.
A lot of Britain does. The British food standards, outside of minus the prayers, the standards.
The standard that the UK has regarding with its food industry is one of the best in the world. I'm sorry, America, but shit. I think very few other places, probably some of the European countries and the Asian countries, which meet similar standards.
This is an important factor. Halal meat isn't only consumed by Muslims. It's many non-Muslims choose halal for its practical, perceived cleanliness, animal welfare focus, perception of care in the free market. The consumption value of the halal market is more than what we are making. So we're not just feeding ourselves. 3.9 million Muslims are covered, and we are also doing other parts of the things. The Hindu community purchases from it, because obviously it's in the Asian markets quite often.
Yeah. And it'll fall in line with their things, say, fair treatment of all living beings.
Exactly. I think that may be wrong about the Hindus, because I think the Hindus are actually vegetarian. But the Asian market people, forgive me, I'm not trying to be insulting to the Hindus. I think they're religiously vegetarian. I might be wrong. I've never really looked into Hinduism.
Is it Hinduism they can't eat the cow?
Yeah, you can't touch a cow. Yeah. You can't even touch it.
It's to do with the fact that
cows are sacred.
Cows are sacred.
In India specifically. Yeah. And a lot of animals are sacred in India as it is. So I mean, it's the Hindu, or some parts of the Hindu religion are vegetarian. I'm not entirely sure all Hindus are vegetarian. Please forgive me. I know very little about the religion. I'm not trying to be insulting. But the Asian market feeds a huge amount of halal meat, and it's more than what we consume as the Muslims. The Muslim community has its food done, and we're feeding other parts of Britain. So it would be damaging to the overall market, the food market, meat market in itself.
This is the thing that even boggles me. Why, just because it's got a prayer attached to it, why condemn it?
Just like I said, the slaughter methods are entirely FSA.
Yeah. I say if it meets with our government standards, why touch it?
Again, this is the thing that it was. Banning halal meat could open the door to restrictions on other religions or cultural practices, such as kosher meat for Jewish communities, religious dress, or faith-based education. The risk undermines civil liberties and minority rights in a country that prides itself on tolerance and freedom.
Just on a side note with regards to religious education, is it actually even taught in schools anymore?
We're talking about Catholic schools. We're talking about actual schools. There's a Catholic school across from us.
No, it's in general schools, like in the general populace.
No, not normal.
Why not? When I was at school, religious education was covered.
Yeah, the standard schools are almost RE is almost extinct across the entire country. I think certain 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷𝐿, certain academies still do it.
Yeah.
As a broad subject. And it's an opt-in or opt-out. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that RE is not taught outside of faith-based schools these days.
I don't get why, because in fact when I was at school it covered all bases. It was like, it didn't specifically hone in on one type of religion, it just covered the basis on all.
It's bad.
I'm not going to lie, the Islamic faith was not represented much, but then I think that was due to lack of knowledge more than anything.
Yeah, because we're talking 40 years ago now. Or 30 for you.
Yeah. I was just like, it was still covered. It didn't specifically target one specific
I suspect
religion,
when you were doing RE, it probably had something on Hinduism and paganism as well as Christianity.
Yeah.
Because the Hindu community is quite large. It has been quite large in the country for some time. But yeah, in essence, RE should be taught across the entire area, even if it's only as seen as an outside kind of view. And this.
I reckon it should be covered with at least within the first 1 to 3 years of the school, secondary school anyway.
Yeah.
Because I know within the last 2, I think it's still the same, where you hone in on more your specialised subjects to get your GCSEs. Because I knew when I'd done it first 3 years, it was compulsory, and then the second 2, if you decide to do it as GCSE, you could take it. But very few people did, but it was still that option. That's probably why it eventually faded out. The lack of interest.
I think the lack of engagement is a massive thing. When you're like the last time I was in a school, there was a Polish Buddhist, and she was teaching about Buddhism in Poland to the classroom. The classroom was fascinated by it, absolutely fascinated. They were just fixated the idea that there is a Polish Buddhist community, because obviously Poland's still massively Christian, like seriously Christian, but they do exist. Polish Buddhists do exist, and she was paler than me and you. Like we're talking pale white.
You mean proper like Snow White skin?
yeah, kind of response. And you could. She was very passionate about it, which was beautiful because it made a very clear understanding of religious values, of how the diversity of Europe has moved in terms of its religious views. A better solution lies in regulation, not prohibition. Instead of banning halal meat, efforts should be focused on education, transparency and welfare standards in all forms of slaughter. Many halal certified bodies already work to ensure human practices, and collaboration between animal welfare groups and faith communities has shown positive outcomes in all aspects, which are still regulated by the FSA.
My point still stands. If it works within our FSA guidelines and
the British guidelines. That's the whole. They are completely British guidelines.
If it falls within the standards we have set up regarding obviously food consumption and livestock going towards that, why should it matter?
No, I know. It also reflects British values. The UK values fairness, religious freedom, cultural diversity. Banning halal meat would conflict with those values and risk marginalising a peaceful, law-abiding community over misconceptions and misinformation. And it will be challenged. If Parliament was hypothetically to outlaw halal meat, it would go straight to the Supreme Court because it would be an infringement of our religious freedom. We want the animals to pass this world peacefully in the most civil way we can, and with Islamic prayer with them. I don't consider that to be a big fucking ask of even a secular nation like Britain. That really isn't asking much.
I then come back to the point of saying grace at the table within the Christian community. Isn't that just the same thing? Apart from doing it when they're slaughtered, you're just doing it before you consume the food.
Many call the ban of halal meat arise from misunderstanding or misinformation about what halal actually entails. Public education about halal practice, animal welfare regulation, and religious customs can foster greater understanding and dispel harmful myths. And I fundamentally believe that the more that is discussed about these practices, the less the bigots and haters have to attack it. We do not go out of our way to harm people.
I know for a fact 90%, 95 to 99% of the UK population was to hear this and turn around and go, what they're following our food safety guidelines. What difference is it going to make?
Yeah, completely. Like the FSA governs how halal slaughter is done.
Yeah.
The Food Standard Authority, which is the governing body of the Britain, directly governs over all halal slaughterhouses.
Falls within our regulations that we set up. It shouldn't be an issue.
I know, but for some reason, someone thought that it would be a good idea to rampage out and start talking about halal slaughter this and how barbaric it is. They've got no proof. They've literally got no proof. If our practice is barbaric, all the meat industry in the UK is barbaric. If that's and I get that some vegans are like that. Some vegans are like that, and they think all forms of animal slaughter is barbaric. But I know you like your fucking steak.
Vegans, if it's the way that you want to go, then fair enough. But I'm sorry. If you used to put a plate of salad in front of me to a steak, I am choosing the steak because it's already been proven that steak has more nutritional value than the salad.
Alhamdulillah.
And that is because the animal which usually eats the salad has the internal system to digest that salad properly.
We are omnivore
and get the actual proper nutrition from it.
We should eat meat, but not on not too heavily. Is how our prophets speak about peace and blessings speak about it. Food should be regulated in all, because this is one of my struggles. I struggle with food because I'm a big foodie person, and hence why I'm such a fat cunt. I'll call it myself. You know, I'm not going to sit here and hide about it.
I'm currently got a larger stomach than usual. Then I just realised I've accidentally gone into bulking stage when it should be good.
Yeah. Exactly. You're bulking. It's cool. For me, it's I need to slim down, and I know this. Food is a bit of a kind of bugbear for me, and I do love it. But meat should be eaten in moderation, is how our prophet, peace and blessings, spoke. And vegetables. We are omnivorical. We are not here to eat just one or the other. It's dangerous to be just a pure meat eater. It's dangerous to be a pure vegetarian. Humans were supposed to adapt on both.
You take the best as omnivoric, best of both worlds. I naturally think it's more. I think it's more 60-40, so more meat than veg.
I think it's 50-50. You should keep it balanced.
But then
you're in the gym every day.
I'm not gonna lie, I am a Jimmy, so I'm like, I want to get big. Duh. And so I'm naturally turning towards the thing that's going to give me the protein to build the muscle.
Which is the meat. Which is the steak.
Meat. Yeah. So
you are a steak man.
I am a steak man. I do like my steak. I am doing a barbecue later, and guess what's going to be on that?
Steak. Absolutely. I think this has covered the two topics that I wanted to have, and we didn't realise that feminism last episode was going to take such a huge amount. You got anything else to add, Chris?
We got 5 minutes to do a quick cover. It's a very quick cover. One thing that I'd put a note on it just because of the fact I saw it and I was like, it needs to be done. Which I think it's slightly covering my immigration. So it's going to spark some shit.
I doubt it. Not for me.
Yeah. A petition to stop asylum seekers' benefits signed by 380k ignored by Keir Starmer.
See See, there's a two-edged blade to that.
Yeah.
From the media reading that thing. Firstly, what are they calling for?
I say a petition to the Parliament calling to stop providing financial support to asylum seekers has been waiting for more than 2 weeks for a response from the government. Bob Clements, who created the online document, wrote that the advocates a census of financial and other support provided to asylum seekers by the government. He added support currently includes shelter, food, medical care, including optical and dental and cash support. I believe such provisions may inadvertently incentivise illegal migration, particularly within English Channel. This petition is to urge the government to discontinue these support measures and payments. At the time of writing, more than 383,000 people have signed, with 100,000 supporters needed for the issue to be considered for a debate by the MPs. Parliament considered all petitions to get more than 100,000 signatures up for a debate, and it's been 15 days since that's happened, and they've still not had a response.
I genuinely think there's two ways of looking at it. One, Keir Starmer runs away from almost all problems. Yeah. So this is something I wouldn't put past him.
And there is more. Once my laptop decides to actually
behave,
yeah, has its moments. But I think that's more due to adverts than anything else. Officials also to the government responded to all petitions that get more than 10,000 signatures. Right, first of all, officials, if you say anything over 10,000 signatures, it gets a response, yeah, and it's meant to be within a 2 week period. Why is it taking 15 days to respond to a 300,000+?
Now, I don't want to defend the government, and I'm
Yeah.
really not. But remember, we've got a crisis going on in the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
We've got Ukraine going on. We've got the Prime Minister jet setting all over the place.
I know there's obviously other factors that they need to address, but if they say they're going to respond within a certain time frame,
yeah,
and it's going to be
it's
going to be delayed for whatever reason, you should at least turn around and go, dear such and such, we are aware of your petition. We should get back to your response in a moment. We are currently dealing with other more important factors. Yeah. Instead of going nothing.
Yeah.
That's what.
To be fair,
that's the thing that's pissing me off the most. The fact that it's been raised.
There's my second point that I want to point is that the government is lawfully and legally obliged by British law to provide shelter for asylum seekers.
Yeah. Obviously, there are some parts to that I'm like, okay, we do need to.
You have to house them, you have to feed them. You have an argument on the cash point. I get that. They shouldn't be necessarily be given reward for that.
Say, obviously, for asylum seekers, food and accommodation, fair enough. But
because we're legally obliged to
we're legally obliged. Food and accommodation, yes. Anything regarding, obviously, dental, optical care and cash support, that is pushing the line. Especially with the cash support. I'm sorry, but why are you giving them cash?
Yeah.
If you could give,
if they're asylum seekers, if they're here seeking asylum, they should be in a transitory position. Yeah. This is one of the problems. Asylum seeking is not dealt fast enough. That's one of the key points. There isn't enough people on the ground to say yay or nay, object or don't object. Do you understand what I'm saying, Chris? There isn't enough manpower to process the fucking asylum seekers. Because we need clarity is another thing. You need to say, no, you're not staying, you're going back to France. That's exactly what should be said. And more that should be saying, or yes, your asylum seeking a claim is just and lawful, you can stay. We need processing a lot faster. Yeah. And that is a key factor that Keir Starmer and the Tory government before that, and the joint Liberal Democrat Tory government before even that, none of them could get this processing problem solved.
So yesterday, the Prime Minister signals that countries that do not do enough to tackle the migrant crisis, such as by taking back failed asylum seekers, could face repercussions as regards the numbers of visas issued to their citizens. The Home Office says that 16,545 people have crossed in small boats so far in 2025. PA reports this is represent a 45% increase from the same period last year, and is also higher than the same point in 2022, the overall record year for crossings. Speaking to reporters at the G7 summit in Canada, Sir Keir Starmer said, "It is a serious challenge that requires a serious response to it." Right. If Keir Starmer is actually saying that, why ain't that one of your top things to be dealing with? Apart from obviously the
admittedly, we've got massive wars that are drawing our attention.
Obviously, apart from obviously the Middle East
and Ukraine, which is on our national, on our regional border,
and now Iran.
Yeah.
Which, if I haven't looked at it much, but if my suspicions are true, Israel, you're a dickhead.
I said nothing. I didn't need to say a damn thing. Israel attacked them.
Yeah, because I haven't looked into it much, so I don't know the full details. But if the main consensus is true, Israel, if you did attack you, you're a fucking dickhead. You're trying to divert attention from Gaza and everything else that you're doing to try and bring America back into it because you realise you was losing them, and you're a fucking cunt for doing it. You need to fuck off and stay in your own fucking lane.
You see, I don't need to say anything as a Muslim next to the agnostic. I really don't. He doesn't have a cult. He has no skin in the game other than he doesn't want Britain involved in this business.
He shouldn't have anything involved in his business.
That's his skin in the game. We shouldn't be involved. Ukraine, we should, in your opinion, because it's in our region. It's literally part of our region, and it affects our food safety for Romania, which is just south of them.
Yeah, I'm thinking more the humanitarian aid for Ukraine and everything else, not necessarily the war.
Yeah, of course.
But the humanitarian aid things, we need to make sure they're fine, because they have their own right to do what they wish. I can understand Russia's side, the fact that they don't want the
EU or everyone else on their fucking border.
Someone on their doorstep. I can understand that point. They could have gone about it a completely different way to what they have, but that's a separate matter entirely. But regarding obviously the lovely petition about asylum seekers, you need to pull up your socks and actually start dealing with it.
It's a processing thing.
Yeah.
I seriously, even as a Muslim, I say this, they need to either accept the asylum seekers who are coming and reject all, and I'm fair about this, economical migrants can go away.
Yeah.
And I say this now, people who are economical migrants, we do not have the infrastructure, land, resources for you to be here. We just do not.
And this is a quick secondary point, which is going to end on a nice, lovely debate and me swearing even further. Laughable, Chris Phillips skewers Angelina Reiner in brutal PMQ's migrant row. The main point I would like to turn around and literally bring out the fact that they allowed a foreign paedophile within the UK. They allowed him residency.
Well, is this recently?
Yes, recently, yeah. And I'm just like, I'll do it. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner resorted to angry name calling as she was challenged to explain why the government put children at risk by failing to deport a foreign paedophile. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillips raised the case in the Prime Minister's questions of the convicted Zimbabwe paedophile who was allowed to stay in Britain because he would face hostility if he was sent home. A court ruled deportation would threaten his human rights. I'm sorry, you committed a crime. You deal with the fucking consequences.
Horrifically heinous crime.
And it's not just a standard crime.
And he's guilty of it. Fucking deport that motherfucker.
He's been convicted of it, sent back, he deals with the consequences. I don't give a shit if it causes him harm. He caused harm to a fucking child. He deserves what he fucking gets.
Zimbabwean kiddie fiddler. No, send him out. Pack him out. Pack him out. Yeah. There are innocent migrants, good people who want to be good people, good citizens of Britain, who need a better and fairer system. And then we got cunts like this.
They need to immediately deport him, get him out. I don't give a shit.
Nor do I.
His home country because
that's his problem.
That is the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, no, completely.
So literally, I don't give a shit about his humanitarian rights. He's fucking lost them in my books. Yeah, I'm sorry. You do something to a child, everything else goes out the fucking window.
That's something to leave on. I genuinely do feel that I've covered the 2 points that I wanted to during this hour podcast. I thank you very much for being here. I think we've done rather well. Involving things like paedophiles, murderers, they should never be let in the country. They should never be let in the country. As a Muslim man, I say it, they should never be let in the country.
Any criminal should not be let in the country.
No, it should not be allowed in the country. Innocent people who need safety should be granted asylum. That's what the system should be for. Mm-hmm. For safety. That is the intention. Anyway, as always, I'm John, Yahya, or Sean, depends on the fuck you're asking.
Mm-hmm. I'm Chris, hope you have a smashing day.
This is your voice, your nation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.